Pause real quick. If you're from DC, or you love DC, this one's for you. Welcome to the People's Voice DC, a podcast where the city speaks for itself. Not just politics, not just headlines. We're talking real life, community life, DC life. From the metro rides to the murals on the walls, from classrooms to corner stores, from church basements to community meetings. This is where conversations actually happen. We talk about what matters: housing and money, mental health and healing, culture, music and creativity, faith, purpose, and finding your way, relationships, parenting, and growing up in the city. Yeah, we talk politics too, but only because policies affect our everyday lives. This show is presented by Rising Voices of Politics and founded by Reverend Michael Campbell with one goal in mind: give the people the mic. And when we say the people, we mean everybody. Young folks with big ideas, creatives with something to say, parents holding it down, leaders in the making, and anyone who's ever felt like their voice didn't matter. Trust, it does. No fake debates, no talking down, no boring energy, just real conversations, good vibes and perspectives that feel like home. Catch us live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and social media by searching The People's Voice, DC, or Rising Voices of Politics. Miss the live show? It drops the same night at risingvoicesdc.org, and you can listen anytime on Spotify. So whether you're on your phone, in the car, in the dorm, or just trying to feel connected, tap in, tune in, and be part of something bigger. This is The People's Voice, DC, the city, the culture, the conversation. And yeah, the people got something.
Welcome to this edition of The People's Voice DC. Listen, we got Madam Leanne Scott in the building. She is coming up in just a moment, but it's a lot that we had to cover. We just had our petitions have been sent in, have been turned in, should I say. There were some folks who made the cut, and there were some folks who missed the cut. It doesn't mean they were bad folks, but they missed the cut. They not on the ballot. So, we're getting down to the nitty gritty in our city. Like, listen, inbox us, message, leave a comment, send me a text. Who you support? Let me know. Right here on The People's Voice DC. You know what? I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but you know me. I'm going to say it anyway. Listen, I even got sued for the reporting that I have done this election season. So, listen, just stay tuned. But we got Madam Leanne Scott in the building, and we will hear from her right after this.
I've been an advocate 2016 when I was homeless. I have been blessed enough since that time to have helped house over 300 families in the city. I've helped the mayor, council.
Well, thank you for your concern about our residents who are experiencing homelessness. Some of them are native to Washington, D.C., some to Washington, D.C., because we are the capital and the seat of government. I've been proud of over my 8 years as mayor, a hands-up approach to doing that. You'll see that we've driven down family homelessness by more than 70%.
Today we're tired. You're here because we're tired. We're here because there needs to be accountability. We're here because you don't get as the mayor to deflate the number of homeless people in your city when it's convenient for you.
Agree that we have a major problem in Washington, D.C. as it relates to homelessness?
We have 221 people as of today's count who are living on the street.
We know damn well it's way more than 221 homeless people in this city. January's point in time count of homelessness was what? 4,922, basically 5,000. So you mean to tell me between January to now we only had 221 homeless people?
We have outreach teams that are out and across all 8 wards.
This all began before dawn this morning when when social workers and volunteers from various nonprofits came here to try to provide assistance to the more than 50 people experiencing homelessness who are living in tents.
My tent is over there. I see it's fenced up, but they're probably going to come destroy the things. And no one wants to get discriminated against in the shelters. First of all, monkeypox is in there. Me, and I've had housing since 22 to 52. This has just happened to me, so I know that it's the government. And most of them are Muslim. They don't want to house them. It's religious discrimination as well. But the old Harriet Tubman shelter is the old morgue. And then because of the convicted felon program, et cetera, especially if Northwest, you get victimized in the shelter, they steal your things.
We spoke to Councilmember Robert White, who was here this morning, one of the council members calling for this to be postponed. Here's what the council member told us just a few hours ago.
For that, most people who are leaving here today don't know where they're going. And that's an indication that we have some real problems in our system. The people who are being cleared out of here are not going into housing, almost no one into even temporary housing. But at the same time, we have enough housing vouchers to house every single person here. Folks here have been approved for housing vouchers for years. Instead of spending our efforts on things that make encampments worse, let's spend our efforts and time fixing the problems, fixing this backlog. That's where our focus has to be.
They're pushing everybody, they're busting us, boom, 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 and not giving them housing and not giving them appropriate identification or case management to get it.
Mayor Bowser needs to answer for her comments. If she won't help the unhoused, the crime, the drugs, the violence, the 17-year-old that just got shot, Tuesday in front of the high school, then she needs to go. She don't care about our communities and our people, then she needs to go, because this ain't just about bike lanes and luxury apartment buildings and Starbucks. This is about life and death.
Welcome, Madam Leanne Scott. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Listen, that was such an amazing and a powerful video. Like it's so powerful in the fact that it still speaks today. It still speaks today. Now, Jewel, baby, I will say, Mayor Bowser is going out of the building. I will say, and I'll even add to my personal satisfaction.
Yeah.
And I believe that everyone that is a part of the Rising Voices satisfaction. She is definitely leaving. But we do have to make sure that we understand who we vote to replace her.
Right.
But yeah, that was such a powerful video. That you've done some amazing things over there with Grassroots DC. For those that don't know, I'm at Miss Scott over at Potomac Gardens, which I believe was a part of the beginning of DC. Where you did great work, despite great opposition.
Oh man, that's so funny. Oh, I wanted to say, I'm glad that you used that. I'm glad that you used that video because it shows how things were before Trump showed up. And because we have a lot of people who are just like, oh, Trump, he's doing this horrible stuff, but it's like our elected officials have been obeying in advance well before he even showed up. So it's just they're like Trump. They were always like Trump light. So that's problematic. And I want to shout out John Godine, who shot most of that footage, and Al Thompson, who did the editing. So, I just wanted to shout them out.
Most definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got to give out.
Yeah,
the
so it's good. But yeah, Potomac Gardens was a start, and it was an experience. It was a good experience. It was good. You know, mainly, but there was opposition. You're not wrong.
Well, I tell you what, it helped raise, personally for me, my awareness on things. It definitely, I definitely learned a lot from it. So I learned a lot from grassroots. I learned a lot from you during that time. So and I believe that a lot of people in Potomac Gardens both learned a lot and were motivated to do more as a result of your work and your conversation. So I personally just want to thank you for that part, at least.
Well, that's good. I remember when I first met you, you were Republican. You were Republican, and I remember having arguments with you about the Washington Redskins. Remember that? Do you remember that? And I said finally, and it's something that I said, look, if you can make the argument, you back it up, you make the argument, we will put it on our site. And you went away to try and do it, and then you finally came back. When I asked you about it again, you were like, I couldn't make a good argument. Do you remember that? It was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's the thing. You want to try and get people to think about things. To think about things, to think about kind of beyond what is, quote unquote, common sense, what people, what is the common knowledge around things. It's like you're bombarded with media is not necessarily interested, is not necessarily telling you the truth about things.
Right.
So you have to digest it with some thought.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Like I said, I appreciate it all. We all know now that I have like totally flipped the boat. I am a progressive Democrat.
Oh man.
I like to I'm a pastor, obviously, so I like to compare myself to Saul and Paul. I went from crucifying my own people to fighting for my own people, and I thank God for that transition. Even still, I've had a personal journey of learning and to some extent being religious, and to a journey of unlearning, and then relearning truth, and now I consider myself more so spiritual, and someone who more so hates religion.
Ah, there we go.
It's still a journey. I'm still learning every day. But I'm so grateful for the things I have learned.
Yeah, religion is really that's an interesting thing, because I totally get how folks who, especially when you're challenged in life and you're struggling, that you really want to believe and have some faith that there's somebody's guiding and helping you out and whatnot. So I don't want to knock that for folks, but there's so many ways in which religion has also, been a part of this system that teaches people things that are not in their best interest. That's the thing. It's really struggleful, right? It's struggleful.
Yeah.
I can tell, yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. but let's talk about grassroots DC. You know, that's kind of what grassroots DC does. It kind of exposes things and tells truths.
That's what we try to do. Yeah.
So yeah, what gave you that vision, and how did this come about?
Well, I want to say it started with like media production training, right? I have worked for a bunch of nonprofits running programs, teaching people how to create their own media. And it's frustrating because, we have like this kind of nonprofit industrial complex here in DC. And I would go to, there'd be in one nonprofit, get a program started, and then they like lose funding for it, or their priorities would change. And so then they would shut it down, and I would go to another one, and I went to like 3, where I was like teaching people stuff. And the last time I moved to another one, I said, well, if this gets shut down again, I'm going to start my own, right? Nonprofit, I'm going to start one myself, because it was crazy. You got to the point where I would be running into former students in the street, and they would be like, "Where are you now? Because I need to learn this program." That kind of thing. It was ridiculous. So that was the thing. But it's not just about the training on the media. It's like we try to train people to do this media, and also we want them to make media that provides a platform for people. Provides a platform for people in the under-resourced, the over-policed areas, for all of the communities that are like traditionally oppressed and whatnot. Because the mainstream media, the corporate-owned media, is not going to tell those stories authentically. They're not going to, if they tell them at all, they're not going to do a good job. They're not going to be accurate. They're not going to, all of that. So that's what we're about. We work a lot with, activist advocacy organizations and nonprofits who, I gotta say, are left-leaning mainly. And we want to try and help them to like build their movements and help support their campaigns and whatnot. So like we provide a bunch of kinds of services. Like, so we will do like send people out to cover a thing, and then maybe make a playlist of it, right? So we have this big ass playlist of when Dion K was killed, some years ago by the police, and they had the community had a really, really good speak out and a vigil, and we have a good playlist, and that of course shows Dion K in a different way than you would get from a lot of, and also speaks to, why young people might be walking around with a gun, right? Because they don't necessarily feel safe. They're not safe from the police, and you go into a neighborhood that you have that your neighborhood might have a beef with or something, or you're just dealing with folks who that thing where you feel like somebody's following you. There are reasons why people will carry guns, and dag on it, I've been in DC long enough. I remember when there was a period of time when handguns were in fact illegal in the District of Columbia, and then the forces of the right, and because of the influence of the whatnot, managed to there was a Supreme Court case, and they overturned our law that we put into place, and now the cops are running around, trying to make sure nobody. None of the black kids have guns. I just, it's crazy. It's like they're going to make sure that it's legal, but we want to make sure that only some folks, certain folks, yeah. At any rate, you got me. I'm a ranter. So, we were talking about Grassroots DC and how we came about and whatnot, what we do, that kind of thing. So yeah, we do the playlists. We've done documentaries. We did a documentary for Black Lives Matter way back when the Parkland shooting happened, and those kids in Florida were getting all kinds of attention, and there were kids in DC who had been fighting gun violence for a long time, and Nene was like, this ain't right. So we did a thing called Incompatible Allies, kind of comparing like those two movements, and that was good. We got that in the festivals. So there's that. The playlist we do. We do fundraising videos for nonprofits, and like issue awareness videos for nonprofits. You saw that thing we did for Peace for DC. They had their graduation, right? We do that, that kind of thing, and that's another way for folks to like build up their portfolios and that kind of thing. We also have our website where people write articles that and it's crazy because websites are not really the thing anymore, but the articles are kind of important because it's where people learn how to research, and they learn how to research, they formulate their ideas, and they find out about things. And so then when you go out to look at you, you see, you did your research before doing this is great. All right. But yeah, so you do this article, but then when you go out to an event, if you've done your research, you go out to an event, you know what questions to ask, right? So you go to a thing, you video camera, and you want to put your mic in front of somebody who's been impacted by a thing, but then you also might want to talk to an organizer who might be like, okay, this is our specific call to action here. This is the thing that we want. But you got to kind of know what's going on. So yeah.
It's real.
It is.
I still need to learn and take some more classes.
There you go. Oh man, yeah. I think our training is mainly like a kind of a one-on-one kind of thing with folks. We have workshops. We have media literacy workshops, and we do storytelling workshops. But the storytelling workshops we tend to be with like a youth serving nonprofit kind of thing. There's that. But we're trying to do better about getting all of our curriculum online, so that there's also that. Because it's not. We're like anybody should be able to use this stuff. Right? Anybody should be able to use it.
Well, that's greatly appreciated.
So there's that. Yeah. And then there's the whole kind of media literacy thing. One of the things that frustrates me, like when we're working with their advocates and the organizers and whatnot, is that there's a thing that goes on. The media that is like owned by corporations, but it's also bought by, like, DC has all of these political action committees, and that will create media. Like when that Secure DC Act happened, when was that? 23 or 24, and something like that. 24, I think it was.
Yeah, that was part of that Omni bill. That
omnibus bill, right? Exactly. Which it's like, yeah, let's forget all of the gains that we made. With Black Lives Matter, we gotta reverse all of that sort of thing, because they wanted to defund the police and do more better. We want to do violence interruption, and we want to send out mental health professionals and stuff like that. Oh, that's like crazy talk, right?
Mhm.
It was like crazy. So you get this God, what is the name of the group? It was like Opportunities DC or some kind of crap like that. But really, like this pro-business kind of thing is also really pro-police. And they would send out postcards to registered and likely voters about, oh, this is why, you should support this omnibus bill and, well, all of this. Right, exactly. So, it's like you don't even really necessarily know what you're up against, Yeah, I'm getting on the YouTube and seeing ads coming in from these folks, because it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you don't even know, so it's like, there you are, you're trying to inform people about what's going on and whatnot, but you don't have the money or the reach to, to send that stuff out, that kind of thing. And then local friggin' news, with, which I hate to say, the old people who all of them friggin' vote are still watching, Fox News and, all of those
I'll confess, I'm a news watcher.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
but
good.
I'm more so of a national news watcher. I'm more so of a CNN, ABC News type. But I will say that I listen to all networks. I don't stay loyal to one network.
Exactly.
That's how I feel like I'll get in some trouble.
Right. Yeah. No. I totally agree with you. And the thing that I think actually for me that is important about the like the legacy media, the ABC, the CBS, the NBC, the Fox, all of those things, is the MSNBC, the CNN, whatever, is that those entities are all ultimately owned by like major corporations who all have ties to like the either it'll be like the prison industrial complex, or it'll be the like the our weapons industry here in the weapons industry, oil, all of these things. So you're going to and they have this way of like structuring their coverage and going top down with folks about what you can kind of say and what you can't kind of say and whatnot. But the thing about it is, it's good to know where their heads are, right? They also own a whole lot of our elected officials, like on the national level, right? They support their campaign. Go to opensecrets.org and find out how much they this is so when you see what they're putting out and you see how our elected officials will like kind of parrot that, kind of follow along, it's it's kind of good to know like where the power is and what's likely to happen. I have also done a lot of looking at news via YouTube. So there's like a couple of kinds, right? So like I like to look at Al Jazeera, which is sure it's owned by the Qatar. Fine, that it's still going to give me another perspective. I like to look at like France 24. There's and look at the friggin' Associated Press, because I actually like the Associated Press. I feel like it is some have to stay more independent than like your New York Times or your Washington Post and that kind of thing. You can still get like a U.S. perspective that is a little less, like when we were at a war with Iraq, the Associated Press was the only institution that was saying this weapons of mass destruction thing don't make no kind of sense, right? They had like two guys that were following the thing, and they were like losing a little bit because the rest of the media was like, yes, we've got to be concerned about those weapons of mass destruction, and they were like looking at each other like, what? You know, where are they getting? What? You know, are we wrong? Because I can't find any actual source to corroborate this. You know, so I like the Associated Press, right? You know, and I find that YouTube is fun. They have all of the political commentator type folks news in a way that is more fun. Although I find those folks a little bit tricky because they're just reacting to the news. So they're not researching it themselves, and they kind of they have their sources, and they But,
so we're talking about journalism. We're gonna dive into that a little bit more.
Okay.
Right after this break.
Okay.
We, being the journalists here, support democracy. We tell people stories. We bring issues to the forefront of decision makers. We keep our elected officials accountable.
Journalism matters in all its forms because unless you're informed, you can't make decisions. You can't make the right decisions because you won't have all the information. Journalism is the bridge between what happens and what people do with that information.
The thing about legacy and traditional journalism, which people have taken for granted, is that it still performs a really important function. We learn this more and more with social media, where we have information overload. People think they can just find out for themselves and educate themselves on the issues.
So our job, I think, is to really use the time and resources that we have to gather that information and then distill it into something that makes sense.
I think probably one of the most important functions of journalism is holding governments and people in positions of power to account, because we can't just trust the information that we're given, by the government or by figures of authority.
And I see our job here as trying to understand why politicians are making the choices they're making, getting them to justify them, trying to explain through facts and analysis why certain things are being done, to try to expose problems that they may not be aware of, to try and fix those problems.
It's crucial for citizens of all ages to be informed because everything that happens in the world can affect you. Either it's a local issue or even something far away can affect our economic and social systems. And if you don't have the information, you can't understand what that is and how it affects you personally and what choices you can make.
Looking up who makes those decisions and finding out how to change something if something does need changing requires an informed citizenry. It requires a press that asks hard questions, and it requires a government that answers them.
There are real threats to democracy. There's a real danger that it's easy to be misinformed. It's harder to get facts than it used to be. It can lead to mistrust, to a decline of institutions. It can lead to a growing cynicism.
And part of being a good citizen and contributing to that national conversation and that national decision-making is with stuff and not just doing stuff on the basis of what you heard yesterday from a guy down the street.
Young people today are more educated than any young people in previous decades. And we know that education usually is tied to how people will approach elections and will turn out at elections. So if young people today are more educated than ever before, one of the things they have to do is educate themselves about government and about what's going on behind the scenes.
Being informed about the world keeps you informed about your life.
That was an excellent piece. That was an excellent piece. It covers, like all so many bases around the importance of journalism. They're not wrong. And we are living in such a crazy time that, you know, we're living in such a crazy time on so many levels, but it's like, you do feel like you should be able to, you know, get on the internet and get your answers, but that's the thing. What on there can you trust, right? What, you know, what on there, you know, people get on, people will say anything, and you can't just, you know, you can't just go by that, right? You know, you have to, there's following the money is one thing, you know, and I was kind of talking about that earlier, but there's also following where are they getting their information, right? Where are they getting their information? You've been following the Grassroots DC likes to cover, we try to cover policing and housing and education and social services and, you know, a lot of things that are budget related and whatnot. And we can get a lot of our information on the at dc.gov around the legislation that's being passed. And, you know, if you go and look at actual legislation, that's a friggin' primary source. That is, this is the policy that they're putting in place, right? You know, then you can go and talk to, you know, this is what the friggin' law says. And then when you talk to people in the street about how this law has impacted them, right? You know, that's journalism. That's really kind of doing your stuff. It's not the same as listening to what like Muriel Bowser has to say, or what the police have to say, you know, right. And just say, you know, and just taking them at their word for things, right? I mean, the police are a perfectly good example. You know, when they talk this officer involved shooting, you know, where they gun somebody down, you know, officer murders someone, and we're going to call it an officer involved shooting to make it sound, you know, more palatable. But you know, they'll describe the thing, but then you need to go. You can't just take their word for it, which is what a lot of, you know, like the legacy media does. You got to go out into the street, talk to the people's family, you know, about the person who's gotten killed and whatnot. You can't just go by one thing. And, you know, when people get into their silos, the friggin' algorithm on the internet will put things up, you know, on your feeds that they think you know are going to agree with, that all that sort of thing. And this is how people get really confused, right? You know, that's the thing. This is why it's so important for you when you're talking about, you know, not just sticking to one news source. That's really important, right? You know, you really have to do that. But yeah, it's a. I think one of the things about journalism that I want to think that I want to believe that we're getting out of is that, you know, for the longest kind of time, there was this idea that a journalist had to be, you know, quote unquote, objective, and that, you know, and that the way that they would, you know, rather than necessarily going to making sure you get to, you know, your primary sources for, you know, for your information and whatnot, they would say, well, we don't necessarily need a primary source. We just need to have two sides of an issue, right? You know, we have to. So then you have really decades of denial about climate change, because, you know, the news was saying forever and ever, you know, okay, we're going to put this, you know, this scientist up here who says climate change is a problem, but we're going to make sure that we have somebody on the other side who says, no, humans aren't causing it, blah, 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 who naturally would be funded by, the fossil fuel industry, who probably owns part of the media source that was doing this thing. So there was certainly, an insistence that they get that side on there too. But, I think that we're getting a little bit away from that, right? Because the thing about it is, it's like, yeah, if you were to, that's fine. Get both sides on there, but then ask them, what the frick is your primary source on this? What, where are you getting this information? So if you talk to the scientist who is saying, climate change is a problem, and I have 98% of the frigging climate scientists are backing me up on all of this, and you go to the other guy who says, oh, I don't know whether it's a real problem, and you say, where are you getting this information? Well, there's these two guys over here who claim to be scientists who say that. Then, do it that way. Don't present them both like they're equally, valid, right? This is crazy, so, and I think we're kind of getting a little away from that. And there's this kind of certain professionalism in journalism, quote unquote professionalism in journalism, that has really gotten away from what journalism, from the real roots of it, right? I mean, would they have listened to Ida B. Wells talking about lynching people, or would they have, today, or would it be like, oh well, maybe those people that they lynched really were bad, and we need to, have this other side.
Well, here's a question for you. Talking about the importance of journalism, and what exactly it is, and what it originally was meant to be. How do you maintain with journalism,
right?
And also talk about the risks that come with journalism. when you're trying to find truths, and revealing the unknown, you come against things. Not to mention, it's not really funded. I mean, our president has significantly cut funding for the arts. So, for instance, myself, I maintain and can do certain things, but even this show comes with a cost, financially,
time.
I just mentioned I've been sued. You didn't
tell me about that. What the frick? I kind of want to answer your question. I mean, the thing is that journalism, but we do have to come back to that because I need to know what the heck is going on there. So for me, my understanding around journalism is really important, and especially now because those folks in that video that you showed were not wrong. There's so much frigging information out there. People do need to have somebody to, who they trusted sources who can say, okay, this is what you really need to be paying attention to. This and this is what we know about this kind of thing, right? I mean, and I also feel like journalism is this thing around, you go to school and they teach you history or whatever, they teach you stuff, science, all of that sort of thing. You get out of, allegedly they teach you that. That's a whole other thing. I mean, not go down that rabbit hole, but you come out and you're like, okay, now I know stuff, but things change, right? Things develop and whatnot. So you need more information. You need to top up on on that sort of thing. And then there's stuff that's happening, just like every day that you kind of need to know about, right? I mean, there's and just really, really basic stuff, like what the weather is going to be like, what is traffic going to be like, stuff like really, really basic things like that. But then you also need to know, okay, I'm like with voting and with voting and legislation, right? You really, here we have our opportunity to replace our friend Eric Bowser. But now, you want to make sure that you don't just put in another, if you've got issues with this lady, then you want to make sure that you don't, so this is where there's all kinds of homework that you can do on your own. But wouldn't it be nice to have trusted sources who will say, okay, let's look at all of the candidates and say, and let's look at all the candidates and let's look at how they voted, right? Or let's look at all of the candidates and let's see how are their campaigns funded, right? And compare how those campaigns are funded with how they vote, right? And and have their votes actually made sense for you, or are they really good about making it sound like it makes sense for you, right? I mean, even I talk about looking at the legislation as a primary source, but the legislation, even the way that they word stuff in there irritates me, right? Even stuff like they will call any friggin' landlord a housing provider. You have so many people spending, 50%, 75% of their income to stay housed, and the government is saying, oh, your landlord isn't, ever so beneficial. He's the housing provider. No, mofo, I went out and raised all of this money to give him. That guy is actually my pimp. Okay, he's basically is what's happening there, and there's no guarantee that this guy is following the law and making sure that the quote unquote the housing that he's supposedly providing for me is up to standards. All of that sort of thing. So, I mean, okay, I just went down a little rabbit hole there. I was trying to talk about journalism. Oh my God! Oh Lord, I was trying to talk about journalism. I can't remember. I would.
No. I mean, it's all tied up. We're coming to the end of our show, so we're tying it all together. And we promised to end with mixing in the role of media and journalism.
Okay.
And so let's you're diving into it. You're bringing us right on board. So don't you're doing great. So yeah, this is a world of mass media, of heavily influenced mass media.
Yeah.
And so certain things people just aren't going to report.
Right.
There's a guy who was running in this year's election by the name of Joe Jackson. A lot of people know him on social media for go-go or what have you, but he said something to me. He said, journalism can change the world. And I've been thinking about it ever since. Like, journalism has such an important role. And you wonder when you start off with journalism, how you expand that into media, but also maintain an integrity and an independence about you, which isn't always easy.
No, it's not. I mean, he's absolutely right. Journalism not only can, it has friggin' changed the world. There was a guy by the name of Thomas Paine who was putting stuff out during the Revolutionary War about what the rights people have to overthrow their government if it doesn't represent them the way that they're supposed to. We need him here now. Where would you and I be if we, without Ida B. Wells talking about lynching, Frederick Douglass and his abolitionist people putting out their paper about abolition? Come on, the folks who were on the front lines with Vietnam, showing the bodies coming back and whatnot, turned journalism turned the people against that war. We need all of this sort of thing. We're at a point now. Now here's my, with the regular media has gotten us kind of desensitized in a way to all of the these bad things that are happening. So that's a real problem. But I don't know. It is dangerous. You're not wrong. I mean, Israel kills so many friggin' journalists. They target them. It's very, the fascism that we're going into makes journalism harder and harder and more dangerous. And when you have the big media also being bought up by fascists and whatnot, it just makes it harder for us to do this job of basically frigging saving democracy and saving the frigging world. Right? It's just, So I had a little rant there, and I'm not sure that I answered your question.
No, you answered it. Like that's the whole point. That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
God.
Is that you have to have that courage.
Yes. So tell me about what happened with you.
So I'm not going to say too much.
Okay, because there's a lawsuit, and we can talk about it later, I suppose.
Well, we definitely will talk about it later.
Okay.
And for my viewers, you know me. I promise you that you are going to get everything.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay.
That's cool. I mean, it's interesting. Let me just say this. Without having heard,
But I'll say this: it involves revealing the character and actions of someone behind closed doors.
Well, see, now you should be allowed to do that because people's character, especially if you're talking about like somebody who's running for office or something, come the frick on, that's the whole thing. And I will say that because Grassroots DC is a nonprofit, so we have to be careful around the way that we do stuff, but mostly our guidelines are not really a problem because, so for example, we want to reveal something about a candidate, for example. It's like we're perfectly willing to reveal stuff about any of the candidates, right? So if you're talking about, okay, where's the money coming from? Let's reveal about all of them. And you can't say that we're being, particular to this one or that one, right? If it's like reveal all of the ways that they have voted on legislation.
That's good advice. I like that.
Right, exactly. Reveal, how all the ways that they voted on legislation. And when you're talking to people in the streets about the way that legislation impacts them, there's nothing that somebody's personal experience nobody can tell you that's a law. Right? Nobody can tell you, oh no, how dare you put that up? No. That's what journalism is about, right? So there are lots of ways to get to the truth. If you are telling the truth, then it should not. There's a lawyer that can help you, right? Because there's, honestly, and we have
I'm very confident in the
First Amendment up in here.
Gotta let everybody know, my man, Mr. Allen, will text me and let me know that I failed to mention this if I do so. On June 19th, please do not forget, be there, like we used to say back in the day, or be squared. The Juneteenth parade in Ward 7. It starts at 9 o'clock. The parade, we start gathering, should I say, at 9 o'clock. The parade starts at 11. Please register or learn more information about this parade at ward7jpc.com. Listen, this has been such an amazing show. I truly thank you for taking your time to grace us with your presence. As I said, you're such an inspiration to me. I don't think when I first met you, I would have ever thought that I would be having a podcast, that I would be out here trying to reveal fighting Republicans and fighting for progressive values. I don't think that's where I was when I met you. But listen, I mean, after I met you, I think I actually ran for commissioner. In Potomac Gardens, and like it's just been a journey. So it definitely set off some stuff. And we'll see how far exactly God will lead this thing to go. But before we close, I let all of our guests have a minute to just say whatever you want to leave the show with. If something you mentioned that you want to leave, how people can contact you or learn more, those types of things. But yeah, close us out.
All right. Well, I will say that we, with Grassroots DC, we're in the process of developing a podcast of our own. And it's called Yet to Be Determined. Right? Yet to Be Determined. And the idea is we're going to start off the show with like a question. Like say for example, Will has Bowser's plan to increase Black home ownership worked, or will this city just keep getting paler and paler and paler? And then we talk about her plan, and we want to talk to like housing advocates about what they think will work and whatnot, that kind of thing. Put out calls to action for people to, what can they do to do, that kind of thing. Then you get to the end of the show and you ask the question again, and naturally, chances are the answer is going to be it's yet to be determined, because it depends on whether or not people will follow through with this, a plan that works or with the plan that doesn't work, and whether or not people follow through, all that kind of thing. But this is one of those things, and I think that you and I should talk about. I think that you and I should talk about, because DC needs a we need podcasters who understand local, DC things, right? There's this understanding that Washington, D.C. is just a federal city, and you come here and protest about federal things, which is important, but there are all of these natives and longtime residents and people who are making the city their home, they're raising their kids, and we have all kinds of issues that also need to be dealt with. It's not just, shouldn't just be a stage for national politics. Not that that's not important, but we also, and I think that, as we try to develop our podcast, it's like, in my heart, I'm hoping that we will somehow be working together on making that a thing. Right? Right?
I look forward to that. And to your point, I was so, how sometimes you think you're just little old Mike and you're around people and you're like, oh my God, I'm in their presence. But I was graced to be in the presence of other elected congressmen and congresswomen. And to your point, just saying that there are 700,000 residents in DC, it shocks them. It amazes them. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're making our laws, you're blocking our stuff, and you don't even realize that there are 700,000 people in DC. To your point, these people that represent Utah and Arizona and all of these other states, they have no idea that there is actually life and communities and schools and parks and bike trails and dogs, that like they don't understand that there is actually life in DC. And I'm telling you, we really have got to get more active in that department while we fight for statehood. The first step is letting people know all over this country that DC has people.
DC has people. DC, that, oh my Lord, DC actually has people. That's the truth. And it's very frustrating that in other countries, you have a capital city and they're all about, well, let's make this their world-class city, and they treat the people in that city like, the important citizens that they are. How are we treated here? We're not given representation. They use us as guinea pigs all the time. That the Congress will do that sort of thing. And then you go and look at how they go and treat people from other countries. If they can't treat us in their friggin' capital city correctly, then trust and believe they will run over, anybody who they perceive as getting in their way, in other countries. It's a whole thing, and they're not going to treat you well in other cities either.
Yeah,
they don't care.
So, we're looking forward to the podcast.
Yes. We're gonna,
we'll talk more after this. It sounds like it's gonna be good. But while we close, for our viewers, if you're watching this, I know I have my students who have become expert stalkers. You guys are expert stalkers. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. I know that when I come back, you're going to tell me everything that was on my Facebook, everything that was on my Twitter or X, everything that was on my TikTok. You're going to know where I was, when I was, who I was with, what outfit I wore. One time I went to the school and I was like, I wore this out, but I didn't wear it to school yet. And I wore it to the school and they were like, Mr. Mike, you just had that on. I'm like, what? They're like, you're a repeat wearer. I was like, I'm a what? But, for all of my stalkers over there, an amazing opportunity if I know some of you have told me that you are inspired, you want to get into it. Richard Wright has a great program specifically for journalism and media. So as you think about your next steps, if you're a parent or a guardian out there, or just a cousin or a friend or a neighbor, and a young person that is interested, I want to leave you with this amazing video that will give our kids an option that I didn't have growing up. A school that I can go to in high school and actually learn about media and production and journalism. So until next time, let's raise our awareness and let's fight for the arts and let's fight for independent journalists. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Did you know there is a journalism and media art school in our nation's capital? Richard Wright Public Charter Schools has been guiding tomorrow's influencers for over a decade and has raised nearly $100 million in scholarships for their students. Well, continuing in that effort, at this year's Congressional Black Caucus event, the school's achievements were recognized by the members of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated with a $10,000 donation. This contribution will help further Richard Wright's mission of uplifting the city's underserved youth through education, media arts, and journalism.
We're creating those black journalists that's telling the true story. And they're right here in D.C. And we want to make sure we continue to do that. Stop by and visit us.
With this outstanding track record of fundraising success, Richard Wright is expanding their efforts to support students by building transitional housing units for those displaced or moving between stable residences. In addition, Richard Wright Schools is also building a state-of-the-art to support broadcast journalism, theater productions, oratorical debates, and hosting student film festivals. With the support of its board members, media mogul Percy Master P. Miller, and social activist Marcia Dyson, this unmatched effort of innovation and outreach not only demonstrates the school's commitment to its students, but also to the community at large. Please partner with Richard Wright and support their passionate work to inspire, encourage, guide, and direct Washington, D.C.'s youth.
All right, real quick, if you've ever yelled at your phone like, man, why nobody ever talks about this? Congratulations. This podcast is for you. Welcome to the People's Voice, D.C., where the city finally gets the mic. And now, this ain't one of those podcasts where everybody sounds smart, but nobody actually saying anything. We talk real life, D.C. life. The kind of conversations you have after work, on the metro, or when the group chat gets serious out of nowhere. Yeah, we talk politics, but don't worry. Nobody yelling over each other. Nobody reading off cue cards. And definitely nobody pretending they got it all figured out. We're talking housing, money, schools, mental health, culture, faith, purpose, relationships. Basically all the stuff that actually affects your life, but somehow never gets explained right. This podcast is powered by Rising Voices of Politics and founded by Reverend Michael Campbell. But listen, you don't gotta be a politician, a preacher, or an expert in nothing to belong